Today's a great day to start your own podcast. Whether you're looking for a new marketing channel, have a message you want to share with the world, or just think it would be fun to have your own talk show, podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show can be online and listed in all the major podcast directories, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more, within minutes of finishing your recording. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. Join over 100,000 podcasters, including us, already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Following the link in the show notes lets Buzzsprout know that we sent you, and we'll get you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan, and it helps support our show.
Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Lynn.
And I'm Rachel Macdonald.
And this is our podcast, What's Your Defect? This is where we talk about our lives living with chronic illnesses, including all of the funny, traumatic, beautiful, and ridiculous moments. If you haven't already, and want to know a little bit more about who we are, what we're living with, and why we started this podcast, give episode 1 a listen. You can find that in our bio and on our Instagram page and on Spotify and iTunes and all of the things, as well as YouTube. And that will give you...
YouTube.
Yeah, watch the YouTube. Rachel over here spent so much time making sure that we had our subtitles in there. So
oh my god,
give that
it took me 7 hours, but I think I'll get better at it. It was like fun though.
Yeah, I'm gonna help this time because that's insane. So
I didn't realize it would take that long going into it. I had no idea what I was in for.
transcribing is it's intense. It's one of like the first things that I started doing at my job that I have now, like back in college. And yeah, now I send it off for other people to do.
I love doing it, but I just really didn't know what I was in for.
It's a whole thing. Anyway, give that a listen because of all of the hard work that she put into that. But for today's episode, we're going to start digging into relationships. There's a lot to cover here, so this is going to be a multi-episode topic. But we're going to start today with talking about social lives and friendships and what that's like. But before we do that, let's check in with each other about this week. So what's been going on for you, Rachel? What are some great moments? What were some shitty moments?
You know, I feel like this week was a little worse than last week, and I say that less off of the bad memories of the week and more of the fact that I'm having more trouble remembering the week than I did last week. I have a feeling it might have been a little worse. I started my new medication and it really knocked me out. Yeah.
Or like, did they prepare you for that? Or were you like,
yes,
I hate it when it's not.
Yeah, but I think I just like kind of was like, it'll be fine.
Oh, that's very true. Yeah, I guess I do that. Yeah, anytime they go, okay, but like this will make you drowsy or this will whatever, I don't believe them. And sometimes for good reason, sometimes it doesn't. And then other times I'm like, oh, maybe I should have believed them.
Yeah. And then I got high last night. I had an edible, and so I very boldly was like, I could absolutely eat a whole pack of vegan orange chicken right now. I'm gonna do it.
Oh my gosh.
And I did it. And then I was like, I'm also gonna eat like a complete cookie, which is like those protein cookies. And then I was like, I'm just gonna like munch on this like cereal, the Life cereal. And so safe to say I didn't feel good today. And like it was kind of like the one like you don't want to like sit up straight because it just like it hurts. It was horrible.
Yep.
So it took me until honestly like barely an hour ago to start feeling like the pressure was not as bad.
Yeah.
So I did that to myself.
Well, that's the thing, because people ask me all the time, and I'll do edibles or smoke something, and it's great. But they all like that's a very common like, oh, but like have you tried that? Like you should just have more weed. And it's a genuinely a great thing, but it also writes checks that my body can't cash.
Yes. Oh my
But
god. I
high me
really
doesn't
was like,
remember
"I
that.
could do this. This is great. I can eat all of this.
Yeah.
It'll be
And you
fine."
do, and you're like, "Okay, so, like, but I'm still hungry, so I'm gonna eat more." And this is, like, one of the shitty things about GI issues sometimes is that you still get hungry, and
Mhm.
so you want to eat. It's just that your body can't handle it, so then you have hunger pains and nausea and eating pains and nausea. But with the
Mhm.
edibles, at least for me, some of that goes away, so I just feel the hunger, so I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna satisfy my hunger."
The
That's right.
last time I did that, I had, I think, 4 or 5 packets of Belvita, and that went so poorly
That's so
that
rich.
I know, that night, I threw them up, and I kid you not, they were, like, practically still dry. Like, it was just the slowest moving sludge of Velveeta or not Velveeta, of Belvita. It was disgusting. Um,
Yeah, where it's like, my body didn't even try to process this, it
yeah,
just
like,
went, "No."
it soaked up all my stomach acid, so I was, like, low on stomach acid for a few days after, and I had such a bad stomach ache. I learned my lesson, but I
Oh,
almost did that
that's
with
so
the Life cereal last night.
well, I guess, yeah, maybe the benefit here is that you're slowly learning and that you didn't throw it all up. You
Yeah,
just were
true.
incapacitated.
True.
Um, yeah, then there's okay, that's your week. Is there any fun moments?
You know, I was able to get a lot more dance classes in than normal because I felt really great at the beginning of the week. I'm
Mm.
not in that good spot anymore, but I was. And we did
And
I
I take that
got to
away.
do a, I know, I got to do a clinic at my dance studio with my mentor. We all have our own like mentor, and she did a lingerie themed class, and we did a Beyonce song. And
Love
so
it.
one of the good things is that when I want to buy something and they don't have my size, I'm like, you know what? This closest size to me, I'll just fit it magically. I'm just going to get it. I'll make it work if I want something
Mhm.
bad enough.
Yep.
But now all the things I did that with that were too big for me, I'm starting to fit, which is really
Yes.
nice. So I have this Fenty bra that is purple and the bottom is like clear mesh. So it's
Got a
just like a
Fenty bra? Oh
see-through
my god.
under boob. Oh, so cute. So I
Yeah,
wore that. Anyway, that was a highlight of my week.
that's amazing. That's a good highlight. Yeah, that's, yeah, I feel like a lot of I know you feel this way. I've had this over the years, and I know some of my friends as well, like, where you have, like, 3 different wardrobes
Yeah.
depending on where you are in your illness.
Mhm.
Because sometimes your illness makes you lose weight, sometimes it makes you gain weight, sometimes it's just chilling at some point, sometimes, like,
Yeah.
it's
Sometimes they
really
fit you when you
abrupt,
put them on at the beginning of the day, and then they don't
and they
by the end of the
don't.
day.
Yeah, yeah.
I made
Uh,
actually the very bold decision. Normally, when I fit in my like, there's certain pairs of jeans that like when I started to fit them, I'd be like awesome, and then I'd grow out of them and I'd keep them because I knew I might fit them again. But
mhm,
as I started the tube feeding, I've like made like a deal with myself, even though I can't really control it if my body hates me, but it's like a deal with myself that I won't go back down. So I've been throwing
mhm.
away all the stuff that I outgrow
I love
because I'm like,
that.
I'll never go back to that. I don't know if that's going to end up being true, but I'm trying to look with optimism. And
Well,
if I end up not
eh,
fitting my clothes again, oh well.
you get more clothes and it's fine, but yeah, I did that some, I guess, too, of, like it's also a good reminder of, like, you know what? Eh, mm?
like this time is going to be
That you're
different.
trying to this time is gonna be different. Like, I'm gonna keep working to stay healthy. So even if I'm not on like, because I had that especially like with my tube feeding or with my TPN too, of like, okay, whenever I get off of this phase, I'm gonna still try to keep up at least some amount so
Yeah,
that
you're
I'm
like, I'm
never
not
going
going to ever
back.
let it get that bad, even though,
Which
you,
sometimes it still does.
yeah.
I do feel like I can catch it more now, so like we get me back up a little bit more to at least a baseline, even if that
Hmm.
means like, because like the other side of that is wanting to I want to feel like I'm fit and that I look good and that I feel good
Hmm.
in my like I feel good about myself. And so I'm like part of it's like I want I want to fit into smaller sizes, but only if it's healthy. And so throwing away the stuff that I know is not going to be healthy if I'm fitting into that size again or whatever
Yes.
is what I try to do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. And then sometimes it's throwing away the stuff where it's like I don't want to fit into that thing that's bigger than me, even though that also is completely out of my control too. And if I have to, because that's what's healthy for me, then that's that. But
and that's a whole other struggle.
it's a whole thing. I know. Maybe
But
we should cut
how
that part
was
out and put into our other episode.
but how was your week?
Yes. What's today? Sunday. Honestly, I feel similar to you, and it's like, what happened this week? I don't. The fun things. I'll start with the positives, right? The funs, the highs. I recently got a bicycle, which is really
fuck
exciting. Yeah, and like it's nice. I have the fancy bicycle shoes.
Nice.
That clip on, and it looks like a real thing. I have biker shorts with the padding, like the whole. Yeah, I'm looking for
Look
jersey.
At you.
I know. My partner grew up cycling, and his dad still cycles and all that. And so like back when we were in middle school, we loved doing that together, and we loved doing it like through the hills or at camps or whatever.
And you've got some beautiful places to bike near you.
I do. So it has been probably like at least a decade since definitely more than a decade since I've like owned a bike and been able to go on bike rides with him. So I finally got one, and we got to go on bike rides this week, and that was super fun. One, because it's beautiful and a fun thing, and it's cute, and two, to feel like I was like, I did physical activity this week.
That real fresh air.
Real fresh air, real activity, and real things like, I don't know if you have this, but to your point, I have beautiful places to cycle around here. We live in a community where cycling's pretty big. And so there's bike paths everywhere. You see them all the time. And I so often would like look and see someone like cycling over a bridge or along the water or whatever and go, one day I'm going to get there and I'm going to be that person, because that seems like a person that I want to be. And it is.
Yeah.
And then we did that this week, and I was like, wait, I can do this too already? Even though I feel horrible and I have very low energy this week and all these things, I was still able to do that. And that was really exciting and fun.
That's super exciting.
Right, yeah. So now I have to just like keep it going. I wanted to go this weekend, and then my energy's horrible, so it's not happening. But that's okay.
It'd be like that.
What color? So yeah, that was my high. It's like, I'm gonna send you a picture. It's like a really pretty blue gray, like slate gray situation.
Nice.
I have a black helmet and all that.
Nice.
Yeah. And I learned how to cycle in cycling shoes, and that was a thing. You clip on and into them, and when you're clipped in, then you're attached to your bicycle, and yeah.
Wait, really what do you do when you have to stop at a stoplight?
Well, you can clip out of them. This is what I'm also learning. So ideally what you try to do is like, because you can balance, Cam's really good at this, like balancing on, sometimes he doesn't have to unclip at all. He'll just balance and like slowly pedal or do whatever, and then when the stoplight's
I'm not that talented.
Me either. So but you can I'll usually get to a stoplight, you should stop, and if you're not going right away, I'll like unclip one, and then you just reclip in when you as you're going again. But I only fell like once. And that was when we were on dirt.
But if you do fall, you're stuck. You can't get your foot out. You just have to accept
Well, that's the other
fate.
thing. That's true. No, but that's the other thing I was learning is that you can unclip pretty fast, and it gets pretty natural.
Like, I guess it makes sense. They make it easy.
And, yeah, literally, like if you're, this is the pedal and this is your shoe. You just rotate your shoe to the.
This reminds me of a memory I had. I was visiting my cousin Jennifer in Scotland, and we were sitting at this little tiny kid table, and I had my legs crossed like this, and I started to fall sideways, but I couldn't uncross my legs, So I just fell over. I couldn't stop myself, and then I was stuck.
Yeah, so that's me and a bike. Yep. No, but I'm getting used to it, but it's like terrifying. I tried one time before, and if you get in your head about it, then you're like, well, I'm stuck. I'm just
You
gonna fall
feel
over all the
stuck.
time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like self-fulfilling prophecy.
That's wild.
But I've definitely done that. So I can imagine just slowly falling over.
Yeah, and there's like nothing you could do to stop it.
So that's my high, and then I made some food this weekend, and that's always a high for me.
Nice. I thought you were gonna say,
Getting
and then I made some food and it was a low.
it.
I was like,
It
oh, I'm
sucked.
sad.
No, it was good. The only issue is I put
Nice.
rosemary in the pasta sauce, and I just put sprigs, and you're supposed to like, take the sprigs out after a certain amount of time,
Yeah.
because they've infused the flavor, and you don't want, they're full sprigs or whatever. I didn't chop them or peel it off or
You don't
anything.
want to stem. Yeah.
You don't want any stems in there, or even like the rosemary leaves, even those, like if they're whole, they can kind of be not easy to eat. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I put those in, but they weren't like in like a cloth or anything. They were just loose there. And one of them I got out in time. The other I left too long, and it like dissolved except for the big stem. So I had all these like rosemary sprigs in there that were not really edible, but they gave great flavor.
Just a little crunchy,
just
a little
just a
hard.
little twiggy, a
Yeah.
little choking hazardy. It's okay. We survived, and it tasted good.
Okay, did you have
Uh,
any lows? Or was the
yes,
rosemary the low? The low?
I wish. I mean, I
If only
think
it could be that
that
easy.
right. The thing for this week that I'm ready to give up on is like I have like three meds. I think that I've been like trying for a while, and then just this week has been another step of just trying to get them covered by insurance.
Mm.
And it's very annoying because they're meds that I were already on. I've been on for a while, all of them. And it's just like with at the beginning of the year, insurance switched to an insurance that I've been on in the past, but like it
And
switched
it's
from an old one
supposedly
from last
better,
year.
isn't it?
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
supposed
yeah,
to
but
be.
it's like going through the process, like even though I've been there before, even though this insurance technically has covered these meds for me in the past, you still have to like reprove to them that why you need to be on these versus other
That's so
ones.
annoying.
So I don't have to like pay out of pocket for them because they're very expensive. Um, and it's just been like this long process, and I'm just tired of it. Even though
That's fair.
there's other people that are doing more work in it than I am. Like my doctor is doing a lot of work to try to
But
make it
still,
happen.
it's like an extra hassle that you shouldn't really have to deal with.
Well, I just want the meds too. I think my body's really
Yeah.
feeling not having them. So it's like my nausea and my migraines are worse because I don't have these meds. And
That fucking
I'm
sucks.
very tired of that. So that's my frustration for the week. We'll see. Hopefully by the time we record again, I'll have better news there.
Thankfully, the meds that I like need to have are pretty cheap right now. But because I hit 100% coverage last year, everything was $0. So one of the medications I was using to poop went from $0 to 430 in January, and so I had to stop taking it. But
Yep.
I
Until you
happened
hit
to
the
switch to
coverage.
but I happened to switch to right after anyway, so it that helps with the pooping, so it worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if I haven't already, I'm about to hit like the out of pocket limit or whatever that you have for insurance.
Yeah, I have a
I
feeling I'm gonna get there pretty quick too.
oh yeah, it's not that hard with our stuff. But
Mm-mm.
like, if it's not covered, like one of these meds is like $80 a pill, and I'm supposed to take it twice a day or something like that.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
No.
So that's just not. And also, they won't fill it for more than 3 days at a time.
Freaking hate that. Mine is never that small of a gap, but like the my psych meds, they were making me have a physical appointment every single month to get it refilled, which is really
Oof.
frustrating. But now I
Yeah.
get 3 months at a time.
Oh, nice. See, three
Thank
months
God.
is the ideal. Yeah. I can't. Yeah.
Every 3 days,
Anyway,
though, that's frustrating.
so I just haven't even been able to get it filled because it's like, even if it is for 3 days, it still has to figure out the insurance thing, and it's like, it's a mess. But we'll get there.
What a
And in the
nightmare.
meantime, I'll just have to take more of the meds that make me loopy.
Yeah.
Well, that's our week. So this episode, we're going to talk about relationships. Specifically, we're going to talk about friends and social life. Rachel, you were the one to kind of pick the specifics for this week. What made you want to start here?
I guess I wanted to start here because it kind of it's a nice way to begin to talk about just our relationship with interacting with like society, the world around us. Because something that, like, for instance, like even in our intro, that we're late to everything. It's part of that,
Mm-hmm.
being late is part of who we are because that's how we interact with the relationships around us. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or not being able to do things maybe when we first planned. I think
yeah, and
this is
like,
like our third planned recording for this episode, and we both had
yeah,
to cancel because of medical shit.
yeah, exactly. And like, I feel like we miss out on a lot of social life, and like,
Mm.
it's hard to keep relationships enough as an adult. So trying to maintain relationships as an adult that feels like shit is even more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Because even things you want to do, sometimes you just don't have the energy, You
Mm-hmm.
cancel on people a lot and you're flaky. It's difficult to work, so you're not in a good mood, and then you don't make as many friends. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it
Sorry,
just
that was
is.
a
I
long
mean,
explanation, but that's the idea.
there's so many feelings around that too that
Mm-hmm.
can make you feel really alone. One, because the hardships for maintaining relationships can make you feel alone, and then also the feelings around that can make you feel alone and isolated as well. Like
Yeah.
that. Oh, am I the only one that's having these difficulties? Am I the only one that's flaky? Am I just doing this wrong? And like I see other people doing it, and so what's wrong with me? Or like, um, maybe I'm being dramatic about it. All of those things, I think we all feel,
Yeah.
but even though we all feel it, it makes it like maybe we don't connect that. Um,
Yeah. And I always feel
so,
like we are like burdensome to be around, like my bladder issues or like not feeling good. And like I worry that like I always complain and I don't want
mm,
people to like if we talk about what's going on and how we're feeling, it's never really ever that positive. It's always like very like
mm-hmm,
negative Nancy.
mm-hmm,
And I don't want, like, I feel like people like, I'm like, oh, people are gonna think I'm just like a negative person, you know?
yeah, mm-hmm, yeah. The how you're perceived and what you put out there is also, at least for me, that's something that is has I've struggled in my relationship to it,
Mm-hmm.
ever since I got sick. Of And a lot of it is also how much I've accepted my medical life and my medical diagnoses being a part of who I am, because like the reality is that it is, and there was like definitely a time where I was just like, nope, I am my own self, completely outside of anything I'm doing medically, and I understand why I thought that way, and I mean, I think I needed to think that way at that time in my life, but the reality is I am who I am today in part because of what my medical stuff is, for the good and the bad. And what that also means is that I can't compartmentalize and go, okay, well, I'm going to have friends that I completely isolate from my medical world, or I have my medical world friends, but they're like I can't compartmentalize relationships that isn't in that way. But I so didn't want to be identified as like the sick friend, so pushing against that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Which I have different types of relationships, and different people know a range of like how, like what I share with people is definitely a range, right? I don't necessarily go up to everyone and go, "Hi, I'm Rachel and I'm sick," right? Sometimes it takes a little
That's
bit
the thing,
longer.
though.
I think
Even
that's
it's
fine.
hard to know what to tell your friends
Yeah.
because you don't want to like not tell your friends something and then they'd be like, "What the heck? Why didn't you tell me?" But it's also like
Mhm.
awkward to say things out of nowhere to bring things up or just
Mhm.
to like tell people. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Or just, I mean, and the reality is it's gonna come up, right? Like I'm gonna end up in the hospital at some time, or I'm gonna end up really sick and not able to do something. And I have found that lying isn't a great solution all around, so maybe not doing that. But I've also found that giving myself the right and ability to share what I want to share is important too. So
Hmm.
that's been a big balance. Um, but like just to loop back, I think to some of like the struggles you were talking about, um, what have been for you some of the hardest moments of um, building friendships and building like in your social life or something
Oh
that you
man,
feel like you're
feels like
still
I'm in
mentally
therapy. But I mean, honestly, my bladder was the biggest problem.
Mm.
And I always felt like it made me really annoying.
Which is so like speaking
You
as your
know,
friend, right, who's seen your bladder at work, let's say, right, or whatever, like definitely doesn't make you annoying, and that's all such a
but not
in your
everyone
head
is
thing.
as like patient in general. Like
Yeah.
I do think on some level it's like it can get frustrating for other people,
It
which I
can definitely be an
understand.
inconvenience. Yeah, I could get that.
And then it would make people like it make you like not. It makes me feel like I'm not as fun to be around because I'm
Mm.
always like don't feel good.
Some of like my things that are I find hard to navigate are just um I guess my relationship with, and maybe totally comes back to the complaining thing that you were talking about as well, of when people know that I have an illness, of course they're gonna ask how I'm doing, which I don't want them to not ask that. I want to ask how they're doing too. Like that's a very normal thing to ask. But uh I can't all like it can get so draining to always answer completely like here's everything that's going on. Like I'm not doing great. But also the flip side is sometimes I feel like I pivot to the other end of just, well, I'm doing fine. I'm still dealing with my stuff. Everything is still doing whatever, and then move on because I don't want um the rest of the night or the rest of the whatever the thing is to be tainted with how I'm feeling physically.
Yeah.
Like I don't want it to be, oh well, she's not feeling well tonight, so we're gonna pivot our plans to accommodate her. Which
Yeah. It just feels like you're inconveniencing people, but you're probably not.
no, or I am, but that's okay because it's
Yeah.
a friendship and it's a relationship, and like being okay with that being the reality sometimes I think is something I, I'd say I'm trying to work on, but definitely not good at yet, and trying to at least be
I
honest
feel
with
that.
myself and be honest with my friends about. But it's taken until literally like so recently to even admit that that's something to work on, is like it's okay to be an inconvenience sometimes. And my friends can be like none of us are perfect. We all go through stuff, and we all are going to have times and days when we need more or less from the people in our life, and that's why
That's
you have a
true.
support system. And like that's okay, and mine might look different or more, I don't want to say more intense, but might be a more like consistent reality. But that's not a reality that like makes me less of a friend or less of a just person in a relationship. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to live with that. But yeah.
It does kind of make you feel you're like you're less present in the relationship.
Mm. Yeah.
Because it's like, it's hard to, I think we put all the ideas on ourselves, like we project it on ourselves, so we think people are thinking these things, and then we like kind of distance ourselves. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Mm-hmm. Fully. Yeah. We go, oh, well, I'm in a bad spot. I don't want to be an inconvenience. So I'm not even
Yeah.
going to tell them. I'm just going to deal with it.
Yeah, or just like
And
not go to like whatever it is, or
mm,
and then miss something that
true.
you did want to go to.
Because you didn't want to have to like have it be slightly altered.
Yeah, because you don't want to like down the party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, okay, I'm gonna go, but I'm gonna like sit. I'm gonna have to like sit there, and I'm not gonna eat, and they're gonna know I'm not feeling well. So then, like,
Maybe our
that's a
problem is
reality.
that like we we overshare. We just have to start telling people, fine,
Yeah. Well, so yeah, that's like the balance I was talking about. I think
and
of
drink a lot
like,
of caffeine.
mm-hmm. Or just and I working to be more honest with like my closest friends and relationships about this, but figuring out going like, okay, they're gonna ask me or whatever, but I don't, even if I'm not in a great spot, I don't want them to change anything. I've got it. So being clear with them about that, like, yeah, I'm not feeling well, but like I'm here and I want to do this, and we're not gonna like I'm here, I'm doing good, I'm ready to do this, and that's the communication. And then other times realizing what I need is I'm here and I'm not feeling well, so I'm gonna sit here and probably not be the same participatory person that I would want to be or that I usually am. That's okay. I'm managing it. Let's just keep going on with like our night. And that kind of communication, when I actually do it, can be really freeing of that, of like not feeling like I'm being dishonest or not feeling like I'm having to hide stuff to pretend to be normal while still being able to um, show up the way I want to show up. But it's such a hard balance.
Yeah, it is tough.
And it's also, over the years, I think if I'm gonna have a deep relationship with someone, with whoever, then that is a specific and intentional thing in my life that
Mm-hmm.
uh so it's not like I have a huge group of really deep friends, but I have my core people, and finding those core people that I can be brutally honest with, and that also, we found a place of that mutual respect and understanding that any relationship needs. That means it's a two-way street, right? Where they're brutally honest and intentional with me, and then I'm the same way. And that shows up differently for either of us, whether it's because of my medical stuff or life going on or whatever. But that connection means that like the relationship the relationship doesn't feel um, as affected by my illness, I think, as it has in the past. And then also knowing that I have I have social relationships and friendships that aren't necessarily that deep, and that's great too. And we get to like have that community, and I get to show up in different ways, and maybe they don't know everything that's going on all the time, but that's also okay. Like, I don't need them to.
Yeah.
It's a process. It's such a process. And
Yeah.
it's hard too. And
But I
it's
feel
ever
like it's hard
changing.
to get to that stage of relationship with people now, though,
Mm-hmm.
because like there's all these little things like being late all the time and being
Yeah.
flaky. Like you become someone that's less dependable than a normal person, and
Yeah.
that can be really off-putting to people.
And it's hard to communicate also. I don't know if you feel this, but like that even though maybe I'm not showing up to the events, or I can't show up to can't show up to things, or am not always as available, that doesn't mean that I can't be there for the other person. And I think that's
Hmm.
something that happens also a lot, is and reasonably, that like they're like, well, we're not going to put anything on Rachel because she's dealing with all her medical shit, and that's so huge, so we're not gonna, we can't lean on her, you know. That's asking too much, and it's not, you know. It takes like communication, but for any friendship that I would have, I always, it needs to be clear for me that I can be there for you still,
I guess we're
just
used
like
to
you can be
having to
for
be
me.
honest with people around us, but then there's a lot of people that aren't used to that, I think.
Yeah. No, and yeah, it doesn't always work, you know. There's friendships that I've had that aren't around anymore, and that's tied in because of my medical stuff, you know, directly, or not, like, you know, some very directly and some kind of indirectly. That's the word. Um, and that's really hard to grapple with too, because then I feel like I'm failing at being a person,
Yeah.
because like it's too hard to be around me or to be in a relationship with me. Like, people can't handle it. That's a really, really hard thing to feel. But it's really hard to change that mindset too, when you know that day in and day out your reality isn't changing.
Yeah.
And in life, we're very used to, like, on the everyday basis, right? Maybe your friend gets a cold or the flu or COVID, to stay relevant, and that's a couple weeks of feeling bad, and then they're back. But when it's every day for years, that's a different reality. And as the person that's feeling sick for every day for years, even if, regardless of how the people in your life are reacting to it, even if they're reacting in the most amazing way possible, like, you still feel that like you're a burden and that you're complaining and that you should just suck it up, and like, how can I have another day where I'm still feeling as bad, but people are still asking how I'm doing, but nothing's changed. And that is so draining. One, because it's admitting to yourself that nothing has changed and that you're still you're still dealing with whatever the illness is, or the whatever it is that you're dealing with. And also just like, how can anyone put up with it? Yeah. Like, how could, and for me, I've struggled a lot with being like, how, and for any type of relationship, I think one of the biggest struggles, and I still have this really deeply, is like not understanding why anyone would want to be in a relationship with me, friendship or
I
otherwise.
feel that way about myself all the
Yeah.
time.
And like, how could you love me when I'm so like broken? Because I don't, like, I feel like for myself that I am like, I'm so hard, like, I have added difficulties with being around me, just like innately. So how is it that anyone could love me? I don't get it a lot of the time. I'm working on it.
Yeah, I understand that. I like I'm not going to get into it this episode because it's a whole thing, but like my endometriosis caused a lot of issues too, like with
Hmm.
that. Because it's like,
Yeah.
it's one thing when it affects you, it's like another thing when you feel like it's affecting somebody else negatively as
Yeah.
well. And then you starts to
Yep.
feel like it's all your fault, you know? And then you're like,
Hmm.
oh, how is this worth putting up with?
Exactly. Literally.
That's kind of how I feel about something. Ugh,
Yeah.
so
And we can
gross.
dive into it more with, I think we both feel that in our romantic relationships.
Hmm.
Um, which we'll dive into in another episode. And I feel that sometimes with my friendships though too. Just like I'm like, this past year I was in the hospital so much, and so I some of my close friends are like the most amazing humans, and I'm so grateful for them. But there are times where I'm like, but you're coming to the hospital again, like, this is another week, like, this is how, like, it isn't, even if, you know, hospitals are kind of shitty places to be, regardless of like if you're the patient or the visitor. I've been
Boring.
both. very boring and just draining and weird and can be very depressing and all of those things. I'm like, why would people want to
Mm-hmm.
come sit with me for however many hours in this depressing ass place over and
I
over
guess it's because
again?
we don't value, like, we don't value ourselves to think that people want to
Mm-hmm.
spend time with us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sadly, because that's it, you know? You're like, how could you possibly, like, just want to hang out with me?
Yeah. So that's definitely, I'm sure, I think I'll always be fighting that demon, especially as I fight that with other parts of my personality or my being, who I am, but especially with my medical stuff. But I'm I want to keep working on it. I'm trying to keep working on, like, the reason I have awesome people in my life is in part because of they appreciate and love me for who I am. And that's
Mhm.
more than my illness. And that's
Yeah.
more than whatever my worst day is. Like, I bring more to the table than that, even on the days where I feel like I bring nothing to the table. Like, I do. And that's why I have, like, that's so important to remember. It's really hard to remember, but it's important to remember, I think.
Mhm.
So I feel like maybe let's go into some other things. At least I have some things. If we're gonna pivot slightly and like talk about those are like some of the things that we struggle with the most. What are positives that we felt, or like funny moments, or just things that uh, our illnesses make relationships harder, but they can also make them awesome, and they can bring strength and stuff like that. And that's important to remember also. Um, like for me, some of my relationships exist solely because of my illnesses. They exist, I met people in the hospital, met people through different communities, um, because I'm sick or because they're dealing with whatever they're dealing with as well. And those are, and that, like, I couldn't imagine my life without some of these people. And that's been a cool thing to see and to feel. And those relationships are their own kind of deep, because this shared experience that we met in and this shared experience that we live in, um, and it also, I think, helps with the whole valuing myself. When I go, I would never
Mhm.
think that about my friend who's dealing with whatever disability or illness they're dealing with. Like, they are no less valuable as a person and as a friend. They show up for me, they do all of this for me, you know so they're doing that, so am I. It's a good reminder. But yeah, just, I think that's been one of the most beautiful things that I've realized over the past couple of decades, um, is like I get to have really, I get to meet insanely awesome people because of the community I am in. And then I get to connect with them in this really cool way. Like, I get to connect with you in this unique and distinct and strong way that is innate because of what we deal with.
Yeah. It's harder for me to think of positives, honestly.
Hmm.
But I mean, there was this really funny time that I don't even remember who I was with. I just know it was like people in my family, I think. And we were on a really long drive. And I think after like a while, I didn't ask to go to the bathroom for a long time because my bladder was doing better. And then
Mm-hmm.
like I don't even remember how it came up, but like apparently, then my mom was like, I'm doing a bad job explaining this, but
You're fine.
my mom was essentially like, Rachel, hurry up and ask to go to the bathroom. I guess that people don't want to inconvenience people, which is why I hate asking to stop to go to the bathroom on road trips. But apparently, like my family, like they wait for me to ask so that
So
they
that
don't
they
have
can
to
go?
ask. So ask if they have to go to the bathroom, but they don't want to ask. And they are like, well, Rachel should ask eventually. Like, she'll ask. So I'm like the scapegoat for people that have to pee on road trips.
That's hilarious.
They're all making
Yep.
me feel awkward and like a burden. I'm carrying everyone's burden.
But you made their life easier.
Yeah.
There you go.
Now they
That's
don't
so
have to
funny.
carry the emotional burden.
Of asking to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, and having to make people pull over. I get to absorb it. Boo.
That's so funny.
Alrighty, doodle.
Okay, I started recording again because I wanted Stevie to be recording.
Heck yeah.
One of the things that I've turned into a positive, but that can also be a negative, is like my tolerance for relationships that have drama, or relationships that are just, I don't know, surface level or whatever, are is very low. Like, I
We don't
don't
have
have
the
a lot of
energy
patience.
for, that
Yeah,
kind of stuff. I
no.
do feel that a lot. I feel like
Mhm.
a lot of the time there's been so many times where I'm like, I just don't have the energy for this.
That's great because it means that the relationships I do have are deeper and intentional, and I've come to a place now in my adult life finally where I feel like I have, that are full of mutual respect and understanding, and what that means is that I can start to feel like I have equality in my relationship. Um, but I also, my patience can be too thin sometimes, I think.
I have no patience. I've been known for having no patience for my whole life.
Yeah.
Since I was like a teeny tiny baby.
Yeah. Which is like, genuinely, I think so many positives about it. I think also good to like let people be people and have some understanding sometimes. It's not like just that there's some balance to it. It doesn't mean that like I'm not gonna put up with bullshit, and I'm not gonna like invest in a relationship that's not um
Worth
that doesn't have a
investing in.
foundation of like respect, or that's just
Yeah.
innate
Not worth
drama
your
or
time.
whatever the case is. No, I'm not gonna do it.
It sounds cruel, but some people aren't worth your time.
True. And it meant that I grew up fast, right? Like, that's definitely more, having that like viewpoint or reality in high school definitely meant that I just didn't really have friends. But um again, growing up fast, there's pros and cons too, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But I think that's also like, I mean, I attribute that to my illness, but I think that's not just an illness thing. Like, it's just a people who prioritize their time in certain ways are not gonna give time to things that aren't, are just silly dramas.
Yeah.
And that's probably good.
Probably.
um if done in a healthy way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like that's a positive and a negative. It's just that's become more true the older I've gotten too. And also, like, more okay with how I interact with that part of myself. It's okay to not put up with things. It's okay if I'm like, oh wait, no, this is a one-sided relationship right now. I'd be like, no, I can't do that because that's sapping me of energy. That's not really giving either of us anything because it's not a respectful and equal relationship. And so why am I putting my energy here when there are other people in my life and other things in my life that deserve that? Give us what the world needs to take away from this moment. What does the world need to know about friendships and social lives with people who have illnesses or disabilities?
That they're hard to maintain, but it's almost like the people that are gonna be the strongest relationships, like the people that aren't gonna make good relationships, they weed themselves out, you know?
Mm, yeah,
That's what I
like
think.
you show up for me, I'm gonna show up for you, and our relationship's gonna
Yeah,
be strong
like
because that's all I have
if
time for.
people don't view us as a burden, then they're probably good people, you know, and the relationship is
Hmm.
more likely to work out. So you weed out. We worry so much about like being burdens and people not liking us, when in reality, it just helps us like narrow down who the best
Because we're
is.
not, yeah, we're not. It's.
Does that even make sense?
Hmm. I think so.
I feel like the way I'm like wording it weird, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah. As much as the negatives that we have to deal with is feeling like a burden, the reality is that's not how the people in our life view us. And they show up for us, and we show up for them, and that means we have great people,
Mm-hmm.
and that we have a strong relationship. So, like, from your
Mm-hmm.
side, it's great, and from their side, it's great, right? Because they get a strong relationship with you as well. That's awesome. So, my thing is, yes, I have a hard life, and yes, I deal with things that maybe people find hard to understand or find whatever the case is. But the way that I do it is just by getting up and doing it. So there's no, like, I don't need pity in my relationships, and
Mm-hmm.
I need you to show up for me, and I need to be able to show up for you. And that, like, that reality is I don't know, I think sometimes, and I'm saying this in a very roundabout way, but I can and will show up for you in a friendship,
Mm-hmm.
even though I also have illnesses, and that my illnesses don't make me not able to do that. It might look different some days than other days, and also it might
Yeah,
mean
it's
that
like my
the
best some days isn't my best on another
no,
day. That's kind
but
of
that's true. True for
of a
everyone,
lot of
right?
things. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe the way it's true for me is slightly more obvious because I'm in the hospital or whatever, but it's still true for everyone. Um, and like I think that's the thing that um, I know my friends know, but I want everyone to know is that even if your friend has a medical illness or a disability or whatever the case is, like we can still show up and we can still support and carry and do all of that in a relationship, and that's like there's no difference there
From
from
anyone else.
from anyone else. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to remember that. It's important for us to remember that and to make sure we're inputting that into our relationships, and it's important for other people to know that because there's some really awesome people in our community. So that's it.
I've noticed
Also,
people nicer to me since I got my tube put in.
yeah, it's not interesting.
I have less problems. I have less fights with random people in public.
Interesting. That's, I mean, yay for you, but also like, just don't be a dick to not be a dick.
I know.
Why does that have to be connected to the fact that you have a tube in your nose?
I know. Because people feel bad for me.
No, yeah, which I mean, so glad and happy for you, but also like, it's like, come on, guys,
I know, it's like
maybe
annoying, but at least it's a positive, I guess.
really, maybe the takeaway is that everyone should treat everyone like we all have NJ tubes, if that's the result,
Yeah.
you know? Like, let's all give each other that grace and that, oh, they might be going through some shit, even
Yeah.
if it's not physically there.
I try to always like give people the benefit of a doubt that like maybe they're going through something.
Yeah,
Like you don't know, you know? But I guess
no,
not everyone thinks like that.
no. Yeah, and to just treat people who have like a something that you can physically see or know about in terms of a disability, to just to like treat them differently just because of that does us no good.
Mm-mm.
Like, yeah. Anyway, that's a tangent, but yeah, everyone treat each other
Normally.
normally, and with the just remember that even if you can't see what someone might be going through, doesn't mean it's not there. And you shouldn't have grace and love and patience just for people that are, I don't know, physically sick or in a bad spot or whatever. That should be the baseline for how you interact with any person, even if they're having the best day of their life.
Makes sense to me.
Okay. So now that we've figured that out, everyone go do that, and maybe the world will be a less dramatic place.
You know what makes me really self-conscious? That I can see my tube. I know my tube is moving sometimes, and I know people can see it. Like sometimes when I swallow, it moves. Or I'm worried that it grosses people out when I eat, and they can see it pulling down.
Oh my gosh, I
Like
forgot that. And like
they can
tugs
see
on
it
at
being
least
tugged on when you're
yep.
eating and swallowing, and it always makes me self-conscious because I feel like it would make me nauseous if I was trying to eat and I saw that. I'm so self-conscious about it. But like
Well,
I feel I
see,
can see it
yeah.
moving when I swallow. Ugh.
I remember that so vividly when I am feeling that same way. I've also just the same thing like when I've had to use wheelchairs and stuff like that. I'm just like the staring is hard.
I tried today at Costco one of the little motor scooters because I was
Aren't they the
having really bad
best?
stomach pains. But I was honestly just felt embarrassed the whole time. And I
Yeah,
thought it made it harder to get around anyway.
I did that once
Like,
after a surgery with my sister, with Sarah. But really, and I think I would have and would feel, and I had a tube in my nose too. So at least then, like sometimes when I'm on, like have had to use wheelchairs, like I look, there's nothing odd, like I look like I just a young, probably healthy girl. So it's like, why are you in a wheelchair? Like, what are you doing? You just
yeah, I
trying
kind of
to
felt
get
like I
like the
didn't
free
deserve
pass
it.
at Disney? Yeah, which is not something that you should ever feel. But I did that one time after surgery with my sister at a grocery store, and it was honestly having her there helped because then we were just like messing around and like laughing and stuff. But so much of the time, it's just I feel embarrassed or like self-conscious that people would be like, oh, but why is she on it? Or either don't think that I should be on it or they pity. They're like, oh, but you're
Yeah.
so young to be so sick, or whatever the case is.
But we also have
Uh,
the luxury of like, because we don't have a disability that makes us like physically unable to walk at all times, like, I think we forget how difficult it is for people who are like physically disabled in that
mm-hmm.
way. Like, because it was really hard to get around in the store, you know?
Like the accessibility was just shit.
People would cut me off a lot. It was so busy. It's hard to
Uh-huh.
turn around. Like, it's just hard to maneuver.
Yeah.
They're really shitty. Like, like it wasn't, the speed was all messed up.
Like, we can walk in whatever, but there's so many people that can't for so many different reasons.
Mhm.
And I feel like we should be at a place now where it doesn't feel like that's another, like an other. Like they should have as much the same amount of accessibility. When you build anything, you should be thinking, okay, so just the same way you think, can people walk in this place? Can people use a wheelchair in this place? They should both be evenly represented. And so
Mhm.
many of that's not true in so many places and areas, or it's like it's still viewed as this special like addition
It
to
feels
whatever
more
the
like
situation.
driving a car in a store. Like you feel like you're constantly at a you turn on green, an unprotected turn on green. That's what
Yeah,
it always feels like.
and just normalize it because like that's a normal part of our life. It's wheelchairs, and it's just that shouldn't be viewed as anything other than
I
just
mean,
another version of normal.
thankfully for me, it's not that often. Like today was like the first time. I guess today was the first time I ever allowed myself to admit that I was feeling bad enough.
And yeah,
But, like, I
and that was
didn't
very
like
valid
it,
for
and
you
it
to
made
use
me
that. Yeah.
self-conscious the whole time, so I'll probably never do it again. I'd rather walk around in pain.
Yeah, I get that. That's how I've felt a
But
lot.
I feel
But I've
bad
also tried.
saying that I felt embarrassed because there's people that have to use those, and I don't want to. They shouldn't be ashamed. I just had never done it before, and I felt embarrassed.
Yeah, and you felt embarrassed because of like you're putting that on yourself. If it's not to do with like necessarily the wheelchair, but just like that, like, oh well, should I like, do I deserve, like, am I
Yeah.
am I sick enough to be using this? And also, all these people are staring at me, going, "Why are you
Hmm.
using this?" And all, or like, "Oh man, this
Or
girl has
even
to
just
use it.
like
That's sad."
admitting
Or,
that you feel bad enough.
hmm yeah,
Like, it made me feel like I was admitting weakness.
which you're not. You're accepting reality. And reality, it doesn't make the reality any worse than the reality of you being able to walk, per se.
Hmm.
It just means that that's where you're at that day, and that you, so then you use the tools that you have to live that. And sometimes the tools are wheelchairs, sometimes they're meds for you, right? And like sometimes there are other things. Same for me, and that's fine. But it's really hard to make not feel like it's admitting weakness, or like admitting, I don't know, it's hard to admit that you're sick sometimes, and there's things that
Hmm.
make that more obvious that I at least avoid when I know I shouldn't, but I do.
I want to put my sweater on.
That being said, that's what I have. We went on a little tangent there at the end.
What tangents are where the heart of it is.
Yeah. And also editing will make it clearer.
Mm-hmm. Neat part.
Great. So I think next week we're going to keep talking about relationships and keep digging into it. If you guys made it this far, thank you. Please follow and share. We're going to keep trying to release this content and keep,
Watch
coming
it
up
on
with topics to
YouTube.
discuss. Watch it on YouTube. Comment on Rachel's amazing transcribing skills. Share it. All of those good things. Yeah, and we're going to keep talking about these things that we feel need to be talked about more, and hopefully you feel the same way. And we'll be back soon with our next episode on relationships, and I'm going to dive into it more.
Hell yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, and we'll talk soon. Bye.
Today's a great day to start your own podcast. Whether you're looking for a new marketing channel, have a message you want to share with the world, or just think it would be fun to have your own talk show, podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show can be online and listed in all the major podcast directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more within minutes of finishing your recording. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. Join over 100,000 podcasters, including us, already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Following the link in the show notes lets Buzzsprout know that we sent you, and we'll get you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan, and it helps support our show.